We've had some questions sent in from the community, and there are some questions that we'd like to ask Father Frank this afternoon.
Sure.
G'day, my name is Eric Robinson, Associate Director for Inclusion from the Archdiocese of Brisbane. My question is, if the Voice was to get up, does it in any way jeopardise constitutionally the future success of treaty?
A lot of talk about the treaty, isn't there, particularly since Lydia Thorpe left the Greens and all of that. Basically, the question of a referendum and a voice is completely separate from the question about a treaty. So whether or not there's a voice in the Constitution won't affect at all discussion about a treaty. Mind you, if there were a voice in the Constitution, it might be a bit easier to have the discussion about what the treaty would look like, because government and Parliament would have a particular body to deal with. But putting that question to one side, all these discussions that have gone on about sovereignty or whatever, I can assure the inquirer that no, whether or not the voices in the Constitution won't affect questions of sovereignty and won't affect questions of treaty.
Good afternoon. My name is David Miller. I'm a Gungaloo person from Central Queensland. I'm also the Queensland rep for NATSICC. I just wanted to ask one question. If the Voice doesn't get up, have we got an alternative plan?
Thanks, David. And I know you've always got a plan B, so I'll be interested to hear your plan B. But if it doesn't get up, I think we'll all need a very long sleep for quite some time, and it'll be a while before we come back at this again. My own hunch is, David, we probably wouldn't come back to it again until we were considering whether Australia would become a republic. But if it were to come back again before then I think the discussion would be more about, do we need some sort of people's convention where Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Australians can come together to talk about what recognition might look like, and then to hear from the competent constitutional lawyers as to how that might be done. In a sense, and I can understand Mr Albanese having done this, that, you know, he comes in as Labor Prime Minister. He's had 3 Liberal Prime Ministers in a row say no. Abbott said no. Turnbull said no, Morrison said no. So he says, well, I'll give something a go. I'll get up at Garma and then I'll bring some Aboriginal leaders together and see what we can come up with. If that doesn't work, then we've got to get back to the more basic approach to amending the Australian Constitution, getting everyone to the table so both sides are there and have to compromise. And that would take quite some years.
Hi, my name's Jody McCord. I'm the Reconciliation Project Manager for the Archdiocese of Brisbane. I'm a Barunga woman. My question to you is, if the Voice gets up, what is the next step in the process?
Joni, that's an excellent question, and I think if the voice to Parliament and the vote is yes, I think it's an opportunity and a time for us to stand up and share our knowledge and our connection to country and have an input that will benefit all of Australians, not just us.
And also, Joni, I think it'll be the time to say, right, we've got to, first of all, get the local and regional voices set up, or at least an understanding as to how they'll operate, and then build on that with the national voice. If you like, the national voice in a sense is the icing on the cake, but you've got to have the cake first. And if we have the icing there ready to go, let's make sure we get the cake baked and have it fresh and available to our people to be able to get on with making a real difference.
Hi, this is Sherry Balcon from the Aboriginal Catholic Ministry in Victoria, coming to you from the Gubbi Gubbi country up near Noosa. My question would be, if Aboriginal people were to have a voice in Parliament, can you tell me what changes would actually happen for Aboriginal people? What would it mean? And would it change the situation in Australia?
Sherry, I think the sort of difference it would make is this. think back to when John Howard brought in the emergency response in the Northern Territory. There were some of your people in favour of it, some strongly opposed. What would be different is that before the Parliament enacted such legislation again, there would be the Special Indigenous Affairs Parliamentary Committee, which would sit down with the representatives of the Voice and formally receive the representations of the Voice as to what they thought was the appropriate way to legislate, including on controversial issues like grog bans in remote communities. So these decisions would be seen to be conjoint decisions of the leaders of Indigenous Australia with the Parliament. And I think in the long run, that can only help.
And Sherry, I'd just like to add, if we were building a road, we would consult with the people who live next to the road because they know the area, they know the issues, and I think that's what government will benefit from is information from our people.
And a national voice can provide you with a highway to Canberra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ravina Waldron and I come to you from the Yagara country. I have a question just in regards to the older voters. If we look at the percentage of the older voters in regards to supporting the yes vote, how do we actually promote that and increase those numbers to target the older age group?
Well, Ravina, you and I have known each other for well over 30 years, so I think we're probably fitting into that ageing group ourselves. And we have to ask ourselves, well, for our contemporaries, what would make a difference? Yes, they've had a lot of experience in life, and maybe their hopes aren't as strong as that of young people. But I think what they want is they want to hear real evidence as to how this could make a difference. And particularly, I think for older Indigenous Australians, they've been through the NAC, they've been through NATSICC, they've been through the Congress of Australia's First Peoples. So they want to know in comparison with those how this will really make a difference. That is, that with constitutional recognition, that they will be guaranteed a place at the table with our parliamentarians. That with constitutional recognition, they will be guaranteed a place of entry into the Minister's office. I think if that can be proved, then the older generation will become more convinced.
I think, Ravina, excellent question. And from a lot of the contact I've had with elders, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal, they want to support the referendum, but they're hungry for knowledge to know what they're supporting, and that hunger is good because they want it to work.
How can the church help to bridge the cultural information gap between First Nations people and non-Indigenous people? And how will it benefit all Australians by giving First Nations a voice on issues that affect them?
Thanks, Sherry. A great question, and I think you know the answer. How can the church do it? With more people like you, Sherry. They should be out there cloning you. That is, that we've got to have greater resources available in the church so that people like you and John, who have formal positions within the church, within NATSICC, I mean, this is what came up at the plenary council, isn't it, John?
Yes.
That, you're no longer on the peripheries of the church, you're central to the life of the Australian church. So you've got to be resourced to be able to do that, and the rest of us have to be more attentive. And all power to your arm as you maintain your resilience in that. Good luck.
I'd just like to add, Sherry, excellent question. And I think the work that you do in the schools and working with our younger people will really benefit that whole process. So, Father Frank, I'd like to thank you for coming to Adelaide to do this interview. You've been a great supporter of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander for many years. You're very important to us, and I think us as Catholics have a very important role within the community, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, and great to be with you, and a great privilege to be with you as the chairperson of NATSICC. I know we always feel, you know, NATSICC can be a bit fragile and under-resourced, but my God, we need you. And the Catholic Church in Australia, we can't keep going forward on all of this unless we're at the table with you and your people. So it's a great privilege to be able to participate in this sort of respectful discussion and getting the information out there. So let's keep going.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.